and hopefully find out what else is involved other than all that singing and dancing and chanting in the streets. The Hare Krishna religious movement now has some 40,000 devotees throughout Australia, but the day-to-day lifestyle of its followers still remains a mystery to most of the community. To explain to us what it means to be a Hare Krishna, please welcome Chittahari and his wife, Cameri, and along with them, Sita and Kapila, who are here. And adorable. Thank you. Sita, have you got something for me, I believe? Would you like to give it to me now? Can you come up and give it to me now? Oh, that's very beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you've got one too, haven't you? Well, turn around and sit down. There we are, just while I have a chat here. These are not your children, I'm
No, we borrowed them.
But you're obviously, I believe any minute, actually. Is that right, today or tomorrow? Oh, that's very kind of you to join us. Well, welcome to the show. Sita, you have to be quiet for a little while. Thank you. Has the community's attitudes towards the Hare Krishna movement changed radically, do you think, in the last few years?
Yeah, we've made a determined effort to, like, open up our movement to the public, you know, so we gladly go on any television shows, and we're out there in the street, we're explaining what we're about. We've now got a lot of community welfare projects, like in King's Cross we feed 200 to 300 people a day, people who are out of work and so on like that. And, you know, and just we're very open in the public. We're giving out millions of books a year here in Australia. And then there's our chanting and so on as well, so we're very...
Now, the chanting, of course, some people say, oh, there they go again, making that terrible din. Do you find that you get a lot of resistance by people if you disturb them in the streets, or do you feel it's a means of communication?
No, it's a means of communication. Actually, a lot of people like to see us chanting, and it's an opportunity for them to approach us, you know, when between chanting times, but just the general public to see us, and we find a lot of people like to join in.
So what's happened? Has the movement changed its attitude by not being so isolated and coming out into the community, or has the community changed its attitude to the extent a little of both? Yeah, in other words, so. What about the things that you do, the style of dress and your markings on your face? What are they? What do they represent?
Well, this is the Vedic style of living. We're following the Indian tradition that goes back 5,000 years. It's actually the most comfortable. You don't see a pregnant lady that looks so
beautiful,
so, you know, happily
and comfortable,
dressed.
And not worrying about the fit.
You don't have to change the fashion every year.
Now, tell me a little about the role of women in the Krishna movement, because it is unusual, isn't it?
It's unusual, but it's practical. Our role is not one of great suppression. It's actually, we're able to express ourselves, you know, our minds, our feelings, but it's one in assistance of the movement. We assist in a position...
But you lead quite segregated lives, I understand, don't you? I mean, sexually and as together.
Well, we don't see sex as the main point in marriage, you know. We see more spiritual development. We have sex to beget children, and it's not that we don't enjoy sex, but it's not the main goal of the marriage, you know. And so the main point is our women, they may be looked on as inferior, as if we treat them inferiorly, but we don't. It's just that we don't sexually exploit our women.
But in the community itself, do you live quite separately? I mean, the women eat together and the men eat together, or are you integrated as a family unit?
In a family we are.
Yeah, as a family we're integrated. Within the temple, we might eat separately, but the woman, we like to sit down and chat while we're eating and, you know, be at ease like that. But
so it's not an enforced part of the religion?
No, not really.
How many, there are now 40,000, is that correct?
40,000 congregation.
And how long's the movement been in Australia?
I think 13 years, 14 years.
That's quite rapid growth, isn't it?
Oh yeah, we're increasing by about 45% a year.
And what do you think attracts people to your lifestyle?
It's happy.
It's a happy lifestyle.
Satisfying.
Do you work very much as a team? I mean, the movement helps one another through sort of thick and thin?
Oh, yeah. We're very close. We're like a big family, actually. Practically, you can ask any devotee in Australia, like the initiated ones, there's about 500 of us. Whether you know any other devotee, and they all know them well. We're very intimate and close.
Close. It is a family unit. I understand that it's quite unusual in as much as your school that you have, that you even have children that don't necessarily belong to the movement actually coming to your school for their education.
Yeah, right. You know, that 60 Minutes program opened up our school, and A lot of people can see that our children are more contented and happier than majority of children.
I think we have some footage here, actually, of the little ones now. Whereabouts is the school?
School's in Murwillumbah, northern New South Wales, and these children are like all living around the area. Even I think that little boy doesn't live in the school. He hasn't got Hare Krishna parents, you know. But the children, there's 65 students there now. There was only about 10 when they did that footage.
Is it very disciplined life?
The schooling, but our lifestyle.
Your lifestyle?
There's rules and regulations within it. Yes, definitely, but once again, it's not one of... We're not reluctant to follow them. Actually, we're finding satisfaction in following them.
Satisfaction in them. Sita, do you go to that school?
No, not yet.
No, she says yes. Do you go to that school?
No, not yet.
Oh, but yes. I used to say that I was 5 when I was 4 too. I think that's very normal. How do you... Not yet, but very
Next
soon.
year.
Huh? Oh, great. Tell me about, you're expecting your first child.
That's right.
That's right. And how do you feel? Will the child just absolutely at any point, do you feel, have any desire to move away from your faith? Or are you confident that your child will grow up within the faith and you won't face, let's face it, a lot of other religions when kids reach a certain age?
Every parent wants to offer their child what they're feeling is the better for the child. And we will, right through, the child will be disciplined and will be brought up within Krishna consciousness at a later date. And that, 15 minutes given some freedom. Or not so much freedom, but just like your own children, you give them what you think is the best for them.
The other thing that fascinates me is was yours an arranged marriage?
Yeah, right.
How did you didn't know what you were going to get?
No.
Well, neither did he, so I suppose it's a 50-50 risk on both of you. How did you feel about that, and do you have some...
I had faith in my leader I went and I said, look, I want to get married. So he chose a girl who he thought had the proper qualities, right?
Right.
So everything's taken into account, even astrological balances and so on like that.
And did she have the same rights to say to her leader, I want a husband and I want this style of man? And it worked right from the start. You took a look at one another and that was it?
Well,
obviously that was it.
It wasn't made in heaven.
Well, come on.
There's some that just click like that. Some you take a little while to get to know one another.
I understand there is no divorce in your faith.
No, we don't have any. That's why, because if you just choose to get married because you're physically attracted, it's not actually a very good basis for marriage, as a lot of people are finding out in society. So there's a huge divorce rate, whereas in our movement we don't have any divorce because we choose one another for spiritual qualities.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very sweet, isn't it? I think I might cry. Just one final question. How do you financially support yourselves?
Well, us personally, we're supported by the society because we're fully engaged in managing the society and looking after it. But, everybody has different businesses and so on like that, and so they support themselves and...
They support themselves or they work as a community?
Some projects are owned by the society, some are financially independent.
Because I think I saw on that program that you grow your own vegetables, you have a market garden, you make
incense. We all eat together and so on.
Yes.
We have some boys that are jewelers. They work out in day jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, and they attend the full program.
Do you find it's difficult for them, or do they find it difficult to move back into the other society still wearing your style of clothing and everything and be accepted as...
Oh, they dress in regular clothes like all these people.
You mean we wouldn't recognise
No, you wouldn't recognise it.
Who's your
There's Hare Krishnas everywhere. Your garbage man might be one.
My garbage man could be a Hare Krishna. What should I say to him tomorrow morning?
Say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the program. You're very gentle people, and I wish you the best of luck with the baby. And thank you for my beautiful gift.
Thank you very much, Maggie.
And we'll be back with Janine Ring, and she's going to sing for us. Thank you very much.
Any longer. At last, after 10 days on strike, it seems the train drivers' dispute over the XPT will be settled on Monday.
And in Brisbane, Australia takes a 2-0 lead over Romania in the Davis Cup tennis quarterfinals. This is Eyewitness News at 6 with Katrina Lee, Tim Webster, Weather Watch with Dal Miles, and Sport with Ron Casey.
Good evening. Monday...
Excitement among his followers to fever pitch. 43-year-old Srila Vishnupad is here to officially open the faith's new $500,000 temple and restaurant in Darlinghurst. Kerry Brewster joined the throng of devotees, greeting the former movie producer and journalist.
In Sydney, the number of Hare Krishna followers are into the thousands. Today, the most devoted waited for their leader. Srila Vishnupad has come from the international headquarters in India for a month-long tour of Australia. Krishna followers are proud of their new centre, both spiritual home and commercial venture, and overwhelmed that their spiritual leader is amongst them. Srila Vishnupad is an American. Before his conversion in the 60s, his name was Charles Backus, producing a film about Jimi Hendrix and working as a freelance reporter. He gave it all away. When the founder of the movement died in 1977, he succeeded him.
People are sick and tired of the chaos which is prevalent in the world. They're just sick and tired of it. Our plan is to take over the whole world.
The worldwide movement is worth countless millions of dollars. In Australia, there are numerous restaurants and businesses, but devotees see no conflict of interest. All profits go back into spreading a religion that preaches peace, love, and one God for all.
Here, take these flowers. And take a sweet, if you would. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Meantime, students at St Patrick's in...
made its first award of damages in fact arrived in Sydney today to inspect a new temple and local headquarters costing $500,000.
Srila Vishnupad, the second of the movement's world leaders since its founding, was greeted in traditional fashion at the centre in Darlinghurst. The marble-floored temple took 6 months to complete, and it and its solid silver throne will serve Sydney's Hare Krishna community, although it won't be opened officially until next week, the movement's 15th anniversary in Australia. Today, Vishnupad took part in temple ceremonies to create the right atmosphere.
Well, apologies about some of the sound problems with that report. Sydney's water board workmen...
A hijacking drama ends in Paris, with 6 Iranian air pirates surrendering to police after freeing nearly 200 hostages unharmed. Details soon on O20.
Krishna was regarded as little more than an obscure religious cult. People looked upon its devotees as some sort of non-conformist dropouts. But gradually the Hare Krishnas have gained public acceptance. Today, in fact, there are nearly 50,000 followers in Australia, and the movement is a multi-million-dollar concern with extensive rural and city land holdings in every state. Visiting Australia at the moment is the world leader of Hare Krishna, Srila Vishnupad, and he joins us live from the Krishna Centre in Sydney. Good morning to you.
Steve, Hare Krishna, how are you?
I'm fine. Now, let's back up a little bit. You were once Charlie Backus, New York filmmaker, and I wonder how you came to surrender that fast life for the life of self-denial.
Well, I had the good fortune of meeting my spiritual master in Los Angeles in 1969, and by the mercy of God, the mercy of Krishna, I listened very carefully to what he said and realized that this Krishna consciousness movement was presenting the positive alternative to the crazy, chaotic life that was reigning at that time and which is prevalent today. So I just stayed there in the temple and served my spiritual master.
Why the Krishna movement, though? Why not one of the other alternative religions?
Well, the real point is that the Hare Krishna movement is not a new religion, but it is the most ancient of all religions. Those who understand the spiritual sciences understand that God is one, and he is for everyone, and that the process for realizing him is to develop your love for him.
What do you say to those colleagues, acquaintances, friends of yours who remember you then in New York and see you now and say, this guy's laughing at us all the way?
All the way where?
Well, I suppose some might say all the way to the bank, others may say all the way in another direction. But I mean, say, this fellow's not for real.
Well, actually, I haven't had that experience. My experience has been that all of my friends, Judy Collins, Joni Baez, all of those people who I knew before I became a devotee, they have great respect for what I'm doing.
Right. Now, in a recent television interview, you suggested that the young people of Australia have no value in their lives. And I wonder what you meant by that and how you form that opinion.
Well, one can form that opinion just by common sense and practical observation. That the rate of drug addiction, especially among the youth of Australia, is one of the highest in the world. There is no respect for family. There is no respect for institutions, educational institutions. There's practically no respect for anything. This is all a result of the permissive society. And the Hare Krishna movement is taking hold among the youth of Australia, strangely enough, because we are offering a very, very regulated and disciplined lifestyle which rejects the 4 principles of irreligiosity. To be a member of our movement, you cannot eat any meat, you cannot have any illicit sex, you cannot take intoxication, and you can't gamble. And the young people of Australia are seeing this as a very pure, positive alternative.
Do you think that the movement is being better accepted by the community at large these days? I mean, has it lived down those stories of brainwashing, kidnapping, terrorism, that sort of thing? Have you overcome that suspicion?
Well, here in Australia, absolutely we have. As a matter of fact, we're seeing that our society is accepted more and more here by all levels of society in Australia.
What evidence do you have of that?
Well, the increase in the number of devotees who are joining, the increase in the number of books which we are distributing, the number of people who write into our society. We receive thousands of letters each week. As a matter of fact, we had an insert in all of the newspapers, and within 5 days, we had over 10,000 people wrote in for receiving books from our society.
The press release that announced this visit of yours to Australia suggested that you might have, I quote the release, some constructive ideas to offer our Prime Minister on his proposed kibbutz development for unemployed Australians. What ideas?
Well, the main idea is that no communal project, whether you call it kibbutz or whatever it might be, no communal project will work unless there is a spiritual center. Without a spiritual center, which means God, nothing will work. Just like you have an effort by all the nations of the world to make a world community through the United Nations. And the United Nations has failed miserably because they are not understanding what is the source of their common brotherhood. They're preaching brotherhood. But in order to be brothers, you have to accept the existence of a common father. And that common father is God.
And without that, no matter what you call it, the kibbutz, the settlement, is not going to work.
Never. It will never work. We challenge you to make a community which will work without a God center.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Steve. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna leader, Srila Vishnupad, by another name these days.